Hello friends and welcome. I'm Sarah Liz and I am back with another stepped up emergency card kit. In this video we're making 4 cards. 4! I usually do 2, maybe 3, but I got excited. I love this sketch. So this is the kit. In the intro video I go through all the sentiments and we make a couple cards that are for wedding and anniversary. So we have 2 pages of circle sentiments, one that prints the circle and one that doesn't, so you have more flexibility. Then rectangle sentiments and 2 pages of strip sentiments in 4 different fonts. We also have a card sketch. And for the cards we make in this video, we're actually pulling sentiments from past kits. First, we'll make a Harry Potter themed card. This kit also has New Home. Then our Pet and Critter sentiments kit. Next, we're pulling from the way back last fall. This is the More Holiday Sentiments. And finally, from the Christmas and July kit that came out at the beginning of the month. If you are interested in this free download, all I ask is that you subscribe to my channel. So go ahead and click that button and ring the bell so you'll be notified every time there's a new free kit. Then be sure to check the description box below the video for instructions and for links to all of the other kits we're using in this video. All right, friends, let's make some cards. So this is the Faux embroidered pumpkin. It's a small die set from Spellbinders. And when I saw this hat, you guys, I was like, will it work? Can I do it? I am not an artist. I'm not. So I'm showing you the one I've already done. And I am just sketching in some eyes. They're sort of upside down teardrops. One is right under a debossed detail and one is right under sort of a cut line. Then I'm adding in the mouth. The mouth is going to go right above the brim of the cap. And there's a little bit of debossing if you were going to add the layers on here. And that's letting me know where I should put my mouth. It's just an upside down crescent, right? I just Googled Harry Potter sorting hat and I'm sort of mimicking what I was seeing in clip art versions of this. Then I'm taking my lightest brown marker and going over all of the cut lines and any of the debossed details that are really emphasizing the shape of the hat instead of trying to tell me where layering pieces might go. Then I will come in over and over again with progressively darker colors, finishing off the eyes and mouth with even a little bit of gray to get them super dark. The lightest shades of brown are still present at the outsides of the eyes and the mouth. And then you can see those lighter shades I'm coming back in kind of at the brim and a few of those other places where I wanted to give it some depth of color. Nothing fancy. I'm not really ink blending. Until here. I am using some walnut stain ink and a small blending brush, and I am just going in around the edges of this hat. It's old, it's dirty, it's ancient, especially at the bottom where we're looking at the inside. This is the Plaster embossing folder from Simon Hurley. This is a new one and I love it. I just think it's so beautiful. And I wanted to give this sort of an antique look. So I'm using my Brilliance Gold pigment pad. And honestly, it was a little too bright. So I just came in with my cloth and I'm buffing that out and softening it a little bit. So it's a little bit shiny, a little bit sort of rustic, dirty looking. I think that goes well with the sorting hat. Then I have this magical paper pad from scrapbook.com. I love this thing. There's tons of stuff in here that is not Disney, just sort of magical, or there's this great stripe pattern or a polka dot pattern. Definitely worth looking, but it's too bright and clean. So I am coming in with some Delicata black shimmer ink. I promise both of these metallic inks dry beautifully and pretty quickly. You're going to see more of that as this video goes on. I just got these and I'm obsessed. This piece measures 3 inches by 5.5 inches. It's that center panel. And now it's a little darker on the edges and there's just a little bit of shine. It's really hard to pick up on camera, but it's definitely there. I'm gonna layer that onto a piece of dark cardstock that is just a little wider. So that's 3 1/4. Again, all of these measurements are in the printable. You don't have to write it down. I've done that for you. And the card sketch prints to size. So it's exactly the same as your A2 panel. I am gluing this centered onto my embossed panel. So you can tell there isn't even a whole lot of that gold and plaster showing. It's just a little bit of extra texture, just something to step it up a little bit. I have some 1/4 inch strips that I've cut out using my favorite scrapbook.com dies. You guys know I have this bin where I just keep a ton of strips of cardstock. It's how I use up the end pieces that are hard to put through my trimmer. And I already had Gryffindor colors, so we're gonna go ahead and add those on there. But you could pick your favorite Hogwarts house, or you could use this idea and make a layout for a graduation card, right? Go ahead and do the strips and their school colors, and instead of the sorting hat, put some books or stamp an image or use one of our graduation sentiments that came out in the spring. And then here, I just wanted that to stand out a little more, so I cut a second hat from black and I glued it ever so slightly down and to the left. This die set is the Cats and Pugs accessories, and look at these glasses. They are perfect and they're really big. If you check out the other Harry Potter video, I used different glasses from the March Club. I can't remember if it was the small die or the large die, but there's also a pair of glasses in the Halloween wreath add-on that's kind of the same shape, but this big set fit here just beautifully. I glued all of my strips onto a piece of 1-inch cardstock, and then that way I could treat it as a single piece and layer my hat onto the end to make sure it was going to cover up the ragged ends of those strips. And then I'll add the whole thing onto my card, making sure that the strips are straight. It was just easier for me to do it this way, but you could also lay it all out so it looks good and then pick it up with a sticky mat, which you've seen me do many, many times. I'm adding just a little bit of glue behind those glasses, and then we can start working on our sentiment. You guys, this card is almost done. I was struggling with where to put the sentiment, so we're gonna make a smaller one. Here's that Harry Potter kit. Again, there's Disney and Harry Potter and New Home and Weirdo Neighbors. There's tons of funny stuff in here. I want pages 2 and 3 that don't have lines around the sentiments. So I'm gonna tell it custom pages 2 through 3, or I could do 2,4, whatever pages I want. And then I scroll down in more settings and I want 2 per page. And look at that. It puts 2 of them on the same page and it shrinks them up and makes them smaller. And that's how I got this sheet. So I'm going to just cut this in half, and then I can treat this the same way I would the other rectangle sentiments. So I am trimming and connecting those tick marks from the bottom to the top, but I don't go all the way up. I want these connected by the header, so I have these strips. Then I will rotate and I still have the tick marks on the side to tell me where to cut these. This is not a nice tidy measurement. Normally these are 1 1/4 by 2 1/4, but when they're smaller, that's not necessarily the case. So I'm just adding glue on the back, and I will tuck that onto a piece of rectangular black cardstock with even margins on the left and bottom. And then I'll trim off on the right-hand side and on the top until those margins match. And I don't worry about what size is the border. I'm not measuring anything and getting frustrated. I'm going to go ahead and add that with some removable adhesive, and this card is good to go. It says, wishing you a day of mischief and magic. I just love this one so much. For card number 2, we're going in a completely different direction. I love stretching a sketch to make it work in lots of different ways. This is an older die set from Spellbinders called Tiered Tray Décor, and I cut just the plant. I'm coming in from the sides with a little bit of marker to create that dimension and roundness, but a blending brush would probably do that even a little bit better. I've already added just a little bit of ink to the tops of the leaves. I thought I was recording, but I wasn't. That's okay. This video is gonna be a little longer anyway. There are 2 layers to the plant, but I'm just gonna assemble the pot, and then I will put those 2 pieces to the side and continue on with our cat. This is the Cheerful Kittens die set. This is from BB Cameron. She's amazing. I cannot get over it. There's a bunch of pugs, like big pugs, big cats, little ones, accessories, funny stuff. Holy smokes, friends. This is cat-tastic. I cannot get over it. I am making this card probably for my sister who loves cats, or for one of my boys who are also obsessed with cats, even though they don't actually remember ever owning them. There's 1 cat head, but then 2 bodies. There's like a sitting cat, and then there's a cat that's like hanging on something. And you can actually stick the body behind whatever the cat is hanging from, and like the feet hang down. We're just gonna do the head for today, right? I'm trying to keep these cards pretty simple. I know I wanna make a bunch of cat cards. Here's the eyeball situation. I struggle a little bit with crittered eyes sometimes because I think the eyes can get a little weird, a little creepy. In this die set, I wanted an additional layer on the eye. So I cut the sort of oval out of white, and then I used a 1/8 inch hole punch to cut some blue instead of just putting the black pupil on there. So there's the new layer I created, but you could do that with a marker. I just think that little bit of color there, instead of cutting the entire oval from color, gives it a more natural look, a little less creepy sometimes. But I understand why they didn't include that in the die set. It's so small and it would have been kind of confusing and a little weird, but this is really easy to do. So I glued that white piece with the blue on it to the cat before I added the pupils, the black piece, just to make sure that they were going to be even. Then when I go to add the ears, I like to put glue on whatever piece is going to go behind. And instead of picking up the ear, I lay the top piece, the face, onto it. It gives me, I think, more control over the position of it. Then there are two pieces for the paws. To finish this off, I'm using some of the Spellbinder's Opaque Splatter White to create that glint of light. To create our 3-inch panel, I have the Starshine background, and the plate just creates this piercing detail. There is a die that will then cut around the outside edges, but I didn't use that today. Then I'm using an old Spellbinders kit. This came out maybe just in June. It's called Summertime Waves, but I thought it looked kind of like maybe textured wallpaper in some kind of posh spa, like I ever go to a posh spa, but it could happen, right? And so I thought that was fun. We covered up most of it anyway. That's our 3¼ inch darker blue panel, and here's our Starshine background. I will say I cut my purple cardstock wrong. So this card is between 1/8 and 1/4 inch short of a standard A2, but generally yours would look the same. I have my cat paws here, and I put the front part of the paw, that darker gray, onto the arm. I didn't need to do that. Having the arm on there is creating extra layers behind this little wood grain piece of cardstock that I have, and it would have been a little easier to just leave the paw there. And in fact, I think if I was going to make this card again, I might tuck the paws a little further behind the cat's head, like the paws come first and then the head sits sort of on top of them. When I go to add my shim, I have a short shim that only needs to cover the bottom because the arm is covering the top. And then I have a full shim. So the shims are 1/2 inch by 1 inch. It's just enough to build up the layers of cardstock on the side, since I have 2 layers of cardstock in the middle, and it keeps it from doing a weird droopy bendy thing. Then I'm going to add glue all over the back, and I can set that straight onto my card. I wasn't quite sure where the cat head would end up on top of my layers of cardstock, the blue stuff, or on the purple. So I'm just using the fine tip bottle of my glue to squirt a little bit of glue back there and make sure that is secure as well. There's one little base to the plant that I can tuck behind the pot. And then I will come in same way with the tip of my glue bottle and just add some glue to make sure that those leaves are connected to the pot, and I can treat the whole thing as a single piece. I've added a little bit of foam everywhere that the plant is not overlapping the cat. I definitely wanted this to be even and flush. I'm imagining the scene where the cat is sneaking somewhere they shouldn't be. They come up kind of behind the pot. You can see the pot is going to fall. It is going to end up everywhere. Or maybe that was just my cat. So this is the Pet and Critters sentiments that came out last winter. Again, they're all linked below. And I am choosing wishing you a cat-tastic birthday. But there's also a 7 out of 7 cats don't care that it's your birthday if you're a little salty. For these last 2 cards, we're going to do a 2-for-1 technique for the backgrounds. And I got to tell you, that black background. And it's so easy. This is the Night and Day Pines BetterPress. So this one impresses the leaves, and the one on the left impresses the background. Remember, you can hot foil with these if you don't have a BetterPress machine. If you don't have either one, that's okay. You could stamp something instead and still use the same technique. So I have a cotton card panel that's from Spellbinders for the BetterPress. And then I have some black watercolor paper that I got on Prime Day. What'd you guys buy on Prime Day? I need to give credit to Linnea over on the LDRS Creative channel. She did a video maybe last week, better pressing with this gold ink. It's the Brilliance Gold. It's by Sukaneko, right? They've been around a long, long time. It dries beautifully and it takes to these plates so well. And I am carefully tapping this gold pigment ink all over my plate. Then I can pop that top plate, the platen, onto it with the paper facing the plate, and I'll run it through my Spellbinders Platinum 6. This is the limited edition lilac one, but you guys, look at that. Look at it. And because it's watercolor cardstock, it does have that deep impression in the paper. It is so beautiful. And I'm like rubbing it immediately. I'm like, is this ink coming off? How long is it going to take to dry? Nothing came off at all. It's amazing. So I'm going to better press this one more time with a porcelain cotton card panel from Spellbinders. This is A2. The other was a 5x7. So I just tried to center it because I'm going to line up those patterns and trim down the black panel, which works really, really well. If you have a BetterPress and you find those cotton card panels to be expensive, they are expensive. I highly recommend looking at purchasing the 8.5 by 11 version so that you can cut them down yourself. They're significantly cheaper that way, and then wait for a sale. They will go on sale, or you can catch that sale through Spellbinders that does 25 off an order of 125. You're essentially getting like a 20% discount on those. So just an option, though I know there are lots of people out there with other ideas on different papers and things that you can use. I just really like the impression that it left on both of these panels. I'll link everything below. So here's our sketch, and that gray piece on the left and right, they're each 1/2 inch. So I'm going to cut off 1/8 of an inch more than that. Okay, so it's 5/8 of an inch, or 1/2 plus 1/8. That means my middle panel is exactly 3 inches and it is centered. And I'm going to do the same thing to the black panel as well. And then we're going to swap the middle panels and get a 2 for 1 here. Though I will say, I'm going to do this a whole bunch more on that black cardstock. Like, I cannot get over how absolutely gorgeous it is. In our intro video for this kit, I did a bunch of this where I used scraps of specialty cardstock and I glued them to these 3-inch panels, and I sort of got the most out of some of my favorite pattern papers or things that I had hot foiled, right? I am super stingy with my favorite things. I am using some matte gold cardstock that comes from that treasured gold cardstock pack from Spellbinders. These are pretty new, and it's like $9. You get 15 sheets of specialty cardstock in silver or in gold or in rose gold. And so it's 3 sheets each of 5 different finishes. Like, I can't even get over it. All the other specialty cardstock out there is so much more expensive. Even the regular cardstock isn't a whole lot cheaper. So I thought this was a really great high quality cardstock, and I wanted to share that with you because you know I'm always looking for a bargain. This is a sentiment from Paper Rose. It says, sending love and hugs. And I love this for all seasons, for all occasions. I've cut it out of that same matte gold, and then I'm stacking it up. My trick when I stack things up with specialty cardstock is to try to match vaguely the color, but I'm not gonna stack up the specialty cardstock. So if it's gold, I use craft. If it's silver, I use gray cardstock, and that works really well for me. Later on, I'm going to change my mind. When I go to add this onto my black panel with that gold debossing, I just feel like it doesn't stand out enough. So I end up doing a second one out of matte silver. And then later I'll remake this card and I'll use silver ink on that black watercolor cardstock and do kind of the same thing. And I'm so excited about that. So I think you can turn this sending love and hugs into any occasion through the sub sentiment. And I've been making more and more of those in our kits. So I'm going to show you how I do that in a little bit. Meanwhile, on our second card, I'm going to use the Faux Embroidered Spruce. This is from that same collection as the sorting hat that we made earlier. And it's a pretty small die set. I love that because it brings the price point down quite a bit. I have cut the leaves, they're not leaves, are they the pine needles out of some dark green? And then there is a trunk piece that layers on top of that. So you get that sort of wood of the tree definitely standing out, and you can cut a bunch of pine boughs to go in amongst that just for some added texture. I'm going to show you all of this. I asked you guys in a previous video if you like seeing the assembly of the die cuts, if you want me to leave all of the steps in. And it was a resounding yes, but I'm going to speed this one up because honestly, this took me longer than I thought it would. And in the end, I went to the Spellbinders website and was looking at other sample cards to kind of see how many people had added and where have they added them and how did they do it. They have all done it different ways, and I love that. There's tons of ways to make this tree work. There's no right or wrong. And then that really gave me inspiration to just kind of wing it and make this my own. I've cut my star out of that same matte gold cardstock, and then I have these ornaments. It's just 2 dies. It cuts 8 of the little, I don't know, metal pieces, and then 8 of the balls that go with it. I cut it out of a bunch of sort of mirror card as well, but in the end, I just liked it with red. I kept this pretty simple. To assemble my card bases, I am going to start by adding the 2 strips of cardstock to either side. My center panel is maybe not quite 3¼ inches, but since we cheated when we cut the strips and we gave them each that extra 1/8 of an inch, it's definitely going to overlap. I'm just going to make sure that there's glue both on the center panel and on the strips of cardstock, and then I'll just center it right in the middle. I am terrible about cutting my card panels to the right size, or maybe it's cutting my card bases. I don't know. I always have to trim something. And so this worked really well, and I could sort of cheat and make sure it fit. This is from the More Holidays kit that came out last fall. And this was actually a misprint. I realized before I published the kit and made it available to all of you that my tick marks weren't showing up on one side, but I don't throw anything away. I've had this sitting in my bin for 9 months, and I am just like crossing my fingers and hoping these are straight. All I want is this holiday season. The original sentiment says, wishing you the gift of therapy to process this holiday season, right? So we're just doing a little bit of surgery, and then I'm going to stack this up a little bit. I wanted to give it some extra weight because our paper rose sentiment is stacked up several times. And so on this ho ho no, I have a bunch of cardstock hanging out on either side, and I'm just going to repurpose that and trim it off behind my sentiment. Then I'll add my glue and put it on a strip of that matte gold cardstock. This is 3/8 of an inch. The strip sentiments are about 1/4 inch, so I find that this size works really nicely. Then I'm going to stick that in my trimmer, and I am just going to trim on that right hand side until that margin matches the other 3 sides. I'm going to add some wet glue behind my sentiment. You'll see here's where I have switched to that silver sentiment, and I have gray cardstock back behind there. Same number of layers. I'm going to forget to add the tittle. You guys, I saved it. I saved all the layers. I was so proud of myself. And it wasn't until I went to photograph this card that I was like, I don't have a dot on the I. So I will add that on later, but don't forget to add it on yours. And then a little bit of glue behind that this holiday season. I know the T of this isn't capitalized, and it probably should be, but I'm not really worried about it. Everyone knows I can't spell. So that finishes up the first of our 2-for-1 cards, and it's really quick and easy. Then we'll move on to the second one. I've already layered up the pieces on the background, right? All of our BetterPressed images, and I have my 2 shims, 1/2 inch by 1 inch. Then I'm just getting the lay of the land, making sure I like everything where it is. And I will add my shim right underneath that top strip. I hadn't glued it down yet. I was just keeping track of placement. But now I know exactly where that top strip needs to go. A little bit of glue. I'll line it up with the edge of my shim. I will say I am conservative. So it's ever so slightly smaller than 1/2 inch by 1 inch, right? I don't want that accidentally showing there. I have matte silver cardstock from the Treasured Cardstock Silver Pack from Spellbinders. And you guys, you can get it everywhere. You can get it at scrapbook.com, Simon Says Stamps, Spellbinders, all the places. Again, everything, link below. And then I also have some black glitter cardstock. I love that little bit of extra luxury on this card, especially with all of that gold ink. I'll use my scissors and trim that off the side, and I've added a little bit of 1mm foam tape from scrapbook.com to the back of my circle. I also put an extra piece of gray cardstock back there just to make sure you weren't going to see any lumps and bumps from the strips and then the pieces on the side that kind of hang off, and just to keep everything nice and even. That 1mm foam is super thin. It's mostly there to even everything out. Then a little bit of glue behind our tree, and I can start to add the ornaments once it's on my card. I fiddled with this for longer than I care to admit. Some people have noted in comments that they love that I don't add embellishments and rhinestones to everything. And it's not that I don't like the look of it, it's that I don't know where they go, or it takes me an hour to figure out where they go. So the ornaments were kind of like rhinestones. I spared you most of that, but I went online, I looked for some inspiration, and I just kind of did what other people had done. It's totally fair to do that. I used my 1 3/4 inch circle punch to add a sentiment wishing you all the joys of the holiday season. And that finishes up card number 4. My friends, I hope that this inspires you to get creative with card sketches. I will link to the emergency card kit playlist and all the videos and printables we've talked about in the description box below, along with all of the supplies. If you're interested in the free download, all I ask is that you subscribe to my channel. Then ring that bell so you'll be notified every time there's a new free kit. Thank you for spending your time with me, and I will see you next time.